This is a well-worn Matchbox Tyre Fryer. This Superfast came out in 1972, and I'm planning on doing a Rattlecan restoration of sorts on it. Well, the casting's in pretty good shape, as you can see here, and it helps that this casting never had glass, so that can't be screwed up. But that darn engine is pretty well worn. And that's going to be the toughest part of this. But it came apart pretty easily. There's only one post holding it together, so I drilled that out. Well, holding the base to the casting. Let me put it to you that way. You see there's two little pieces of plastic in there holding that top cover on the engine and holding the engine in place. So once I drilled those out, and again, they're plastic, so you have to be careful with it. The engine was loose already from years of play. But you see, it's that black part that holds the engine in place through the casting itself. That pops off, and we have the worn engine. The metal of the body, yeah, it's surprising how good that was. I didn't really need to do much to that. And then I just needed to take this little center plastic seat interior section out. Again, there was a post holding that in place. So once I drilled that, I discovered it wasn't going anywhere. Because hidden under the dash, sure enough, is another post. And I was just using the pliers there to keep the chassis up off the base, off the bench as I was pressing down to drill it. That's all that was there for. Once I drilled that out, that center section pops out, and it's actually this kind of cute, almost like go-kart kind of look. And there was part of me that was really tempted just to pull that out, spray that up, detail it like a go-kart, and call it a wrap. But no. The engine, yeah, that's a frustrating part. It's worn in some areas pretty badly. The pipes had been worn pretty badly as well. They didn't have... I ended up filing them flat, or at least putting flat tips on them, like the original. So they're just shorter than the original. But once again, they're flat. And then what I end up doing is taking a drill bit to give them that chamfered edge that they need, or beveled, or whatever you want to call it, edge, to the lip of each of those pipes. And that actually worked pretty well. I was surprised that I hoped it would work well, and it did. Then it was time to just throw this into super clean because I wanted to get rid of the chrome. And yeah, that super clean is... It's seen better days, but it still works. Fortunately, I do have a lot of the big jugs still left. I've got that out in the garage. And I just refill it now and then, and I think it might be time for a refill of this one. But it still works, surprisingly. And I use Citrustrip to, pull the paint off the casting and the base. I didn't want to do... I wasn't doing a custom. I'm trying to do a Rattlecan restoration on this as best I can. And so I didn't do a lot of cleanup of the body because, again, it looked pretty good. It didn't have play wear to it. I didn't want to remove casting lines that were originally there, that kind of thing. I did drill it and tap it so that I could have a screw to hold it all together. It was very easy to drill and tap because you got a lot to work with there. Again, it was just the one post. The one post at the back end. And the front end is held in place. It just kind of clips in. The headlights, in a way, hold it in place. So that's a 256 screw I end up throwing in there. And you see that back little bump on the back of the chassis body. You don't even see that in the end because the engine covers it. But there you see, after Citrustrip, how it turned out. And I wanted to avoid, even though it's a very chrome-looking piece on the original, I wanted to try the metal polishing powder again, the Uschi, or however you want to pronounce it, chrome version. Because Molotow can be so heavy, the Molotow chrome. And much of the detail is worn off of this engine already. So after hitting it with black paint, I thought, well, let me use this powder. I'll get a real light chrome look to it. And while it worked, I think because of the wear and the intricate nature of the detail on the engine, what was still there, I don't think the powder was ideal for this. It wasn't giving me the results I wanted. It was an interestingly realistic kind of look, as you can kind of see here, but it looks a lot better here on camera than it really did in person. It had a much darker look in person, and it wasn't looking anything like the original tire fryer. And so I was kicking myself in a way for stripping the chrome off that original and heading this route. Because what I end up doing is, sure enough, throwing that back in the super clean, pulling the powder off, hitting it with black paint again, and then going over that with the Molotow pin. That's a 2mm Molotow. I did use the 1mm to get into some small areas, but it has the chrome kind of like the original, and it is a heavy coat, but it is what it is. That's almost becoming my saying in these. But I went with Icy Blue, Tester's Extreme Lacquer for the body. That was the closest Rattlecan I had to the original, and I'm thrilled with the look of it. The color turned out really well, and I really like the Extreme Lacquer paints. The wheels, again, since this was a restoration of sorts, I cleaned up the wheels. They weren't in perfect shape, but they weren't terrible either. I used the 2mm Molotow chrome pin again to, freshen them up. I did hit the ends of the axles with a black pin. And then once that all dried up, I dipped those into Pledge because I wanted to freshen them up. And the Pledge really did that. As you can see there, I like the finished look of those after they have the Pledge on them. They do not look brand new, but they look a lot better than they originally did. And so I popped those, I did wash and dry that interior, didn't do anything else to that because it was in great shape. I really like the go-kart look of that. I did hit the base with Rust-Oleum gloss black. I did keep a section clean of it, as you saw there, right before I put that piece on, because that I end up using CA glue on the two posts to hold that little center section to the base. I did use Accelerator to speed up the process. I don't show that here. And, that basically was the end of a lot of the work on this. At this point, I just popped that black top section on the engine. It was in great shape. Just cleaned it up again a little. And then that pops onto the casting. And you remember there were those two posts on that black plastic piece that hold everything in place. I did set those up. I tapped them lightly so they could take screws. And so that I screw into the casting. There's two screws. You do not see those once this is finished. I thought about gluing it in place, and screwing it actually worked perfectly. Well, when I could keep the screw on the driver. So it was time to throw a magnet onto the driver because I didn't want to have to fish for this thing over and over inside the casting here. And again, those worked perfectly just to hold that in place. Now the engine is nice and snug onto that body, and it should stay that way. The chrome on the engine turned out okay. It is a heavy coat. I don't airbrush Molotow. I know some people have. I'm obviously not at that point, but I think given the wear on that engine, it turned out pretty much as good as I was going to get it. I have no idea if replacement engines are available for this. I didn't even check because I just wanted to bring this thing back the way it was. And it's an odd little casting. Through the screw on the bottom, I do end up painting that screw black after I have this together. Rolls like a champ. And again, here's where we started. I'm really happy with the color of the finished paint job. It's not identical to this, but in my opinion, it's close enough, especially considering that it's a Rattlecan. You know, people can mix up paints to hit that dead on, but for a Rattlecan, I think this isn't too shabby. So there's the finished result. I hope you like it. This was a fun little, reasonably quick. I made it more difficult than it needed to be. But I'm happy with the end results. And I hope you are too. There's some glamour shots coming up here in a second. Everybody, thanks for watching these videos, and stay safe and healthy out there. And I'll catch you in the next one.